Well, hello there, my bookish folks. Welcome or welcome back to the Chronicles for Reader. I realized at the time of editing that I hadn't filmed a proper intro for this video, so I decided that I might as well show this clip of me getting ready and my outfit of the day. And for what, you might ask? Well, today I'm heading out to town to do something very exciting, attend a book fair, and I decided I would take you guys along with me. Now, like practically every single major book fair that happens in Thrissur, this one too is being hosted at the Agrshala Hall of the Padmika Temple near the Round, and that's where I headed to meet up with one of my friends. Since both of us are hardcore readers, it's honestly a tradition of ours to attend all of the book fairs that happen there because you can get so many cool recommendations just from checking out the books. They also have a much wider selection than bookstores, at least in Thrissur. This video will entirely comprise of me pointing out all the books that I've read and want to read to you, and I hope that we'll be able to walk away from this with loads more books to add to your TBR. And without further ado, let's jump right into all these incredible books. So firstly, I spotted the Septimus Heap series, which is something that I read most of the books from the library when I was in 7th grade. And right next to that, I spotted this cool book, which I thought would be part of the Rick Riordan Presents universe, but it isn't, but it still looks really fun. And I think this would be about the Kusanagi. And then there's the Dog Diary series, which I really loved too. I think I've read all of the books except for the most recently released one, and these were much better than Diary of the Wimpy Kid. Honestly, anything was better than Diary of the Wimpy Kid. For a second I thought this was a new Heartstopper book, but it's just a cover redesign of Alice Oseman's other works. I think all of them got redone. And this is the most recent work by Kelly Barnhill. It's giving BFG vibes for some reason. I've read When We Were Dragons by her, but have yet to read any of her middle grade books, despite owning The Girl Who Drank the Moon. I actually bought it for my brother, but I wanted to read it too. Unfortunately, never got around to reading it. This is yet another book that I've been meaning to read. I just couldn't get my hands on a copy. It's like the only book other than the most recent Chalice of the Gods by Rick Riordan that I haven't read yet. Yes, I have read literally every other book by him. Then I saw this other book that I've never even seen around before. It has really cool blue sprayed edges. It looks really fun. I'm always on the hunt for new middle grade recommendations. The School for Good and Evil, yet another series that I've been meaning to read. Fairy tale retellings are some of my favorite works of fiction, so I think I'll really love this. I watched the Netflix movie and I quite enjoyed that too. Loads of Enid Blyton books here. These were a core childhood memory. I even saw some books that I've never even seen before, like I didn't know they were Enid Blyton books, so that was cool. Shadow and Bone with its Netflix adaptation cover, I much prefer the original one. And here we have Rule of Worlds, which is my favorite book in the Grishaverse, and this is the most recent book by her, The Familiar. I remember reading this one in a bookstore. That was a very interesting experience. I just read it cover to cover all in one go. The illustrations are beautiful, but I never see myself buying a book with such few words and costing so much. This book has such a creative cover. It looks like an interesting mystery. Maybe I should check it out. Also been meaning to read the murder mysteries by this author. They look very interesting. This one's about Willy Wonka's backstory from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I think it's based on the movie that came out a few years ago. And here we have Atalanta by Jennifer Saint. I've been meaning to read all of her reimaginings of the Greek legends centering around the women. And Atalanta is my favorite Greek hero, so I desperately need to check that out. Here's the Murakami Haruki section. I've only ever read Kafka on the Show by him, and that was a bizarre, problematic read, and I don't see why people love his writing, but I'm willing to read another book by him just to see whether it gets better. This gorgeous cover drew me in along with the byline, but then I turned it around and look what I saw. The main character is a toxicologist, and I want to be a toxicologist, so I absolutely need to read that book. This one has been quite popular on BookTube recently, maybe I should read that. And then I spotted the notorious Twilight series. I borrowed all 4 of the books and read them from the library, and that was a terrible experience, would not recommend, I hated them. This is the first book in a trilogy that I wanted to read a while ago, but by now I've kind of forgotten why I wanted to read it. Yet another super popular booktube book. I think I'll hate it, which is exactly why I should read it. Maybe I can make a fun vlog out of it. Another very problematic classic, but in this case it is meant to be problematic. Like if you don't find it weird, then you're suspicious. All the self-help books that I'm never going to read because this is honestly the most boring genre and they make me feel like I'm a loser, so I'm steering clear of these things. Atomic Habits is one that I would like to read though because I've heard very good things about it. All the rest, the ones for making money and all, no thank you. This is a non-fiction book that I've been meaning to read for quite a while. Not only is the cover absolutely breathtaking, it's also a topic that I'm very much interested in. A sequel to a fantasy duology that has been on my radar for a while. I'm so glad that recently there's been a lot of Chinese-inspired fantasy books coming out, because for a wuxia and xianxia fan like me, that's great news. Found this really beautiful edition of Babel by R.F. Kuang, who's one of my favorite authors. This one is much lighter than the usual covers, and it's been a book that I've been meaning to read for quite a while. And then I got to this remote corner of the hall which is kept apart from the other books, and that makes sense because this is the 50% discount section and they don't want people coming here. Not that there is even much to look at here. All of these books are either in terrible condition or they're the most boring books you would see, and I doubt anyone would want to purchase them. And then I came across this section of really beautiful hardcover copies of abridged editions of famous classics, and they looked really gorgeous. These new covers make these books seem like some kind of gritty murder mystery series, but it's actually a middle grade one. And I've read the first book, I really enjoyed that, and I need to continue with the series. It was so fun. I've heard really good things about this book. The vibes are supposed to be awesome, and it has won quite a few awards, so I should check that out too. Then I spotted this really cool middle grade fantasy about dragons. I swear you can't go wrong with a story with dragons, unless it's Fourth Wing. Then it's bound to crash and burn. The second book in the spin-off duology of The Folk of the Air. The Cruel Prince trilogy was okay. I didn't love it that much, but it's still interesting enough to make me want to read the spin-off ones. We move on to the Roald Dahl section. I'm fairly sure I've read most of his books too. My favorite is definitely Matilda. That was such an inspiring read when I read it in 5th grade, and I'll always treasure that book. Ken Follett is yet another acclaimed author who I want to read the works of. His historical fictions are so thick you could murder someone with them. And then I saw this non-fiction book about Maria Slodowska. As a girl who really loves chemistry, she's a scientist who is a great inspiration to me. Here's the section of non-fiction books that I'm actually interested in because most of them have to do with science. And then we got to more of those financial self-help books which I really didn't want to see, but they looked nice. The arrangement is very aesthetically pleasing. There's that at least. The anniversary edition copies of the Divergent series. I've read the first one. I own that exact copy. I was given it as a gift. I think it was okay, not as good as the Hunger Games. This table had a smattering of lots of different series. I don't see a common theme here. I did find a lot of these toxic romance books that are for some reason very popular on Book Talk and BookTube. And then these Paulo Coelho books. I've read maybe 2 of them. I don't see what the hype is all about. This is Ali Hazelwood's only YA work so far. I'm quite interested in checking that out because it's about 2 chess rivals and I love chess. The Hobbit, which I surprisingly haven't read yet. Despite plowing through the entirety of Lord of the Rings when I was 11, I never got around to reading The Hobbit. George R.R. Martin's very famous A Song of Ice and Fire. I think I've read maybe 2 or 3 of the books. I'm not really sure. I didn't enjoy them. I don't see why people are losing their minds over it. I get that it's very epic in scale, but some of the things that happen in it feel quite excessive to me. They're there for literally no other reason than shock value. This is a cool bind-up of 2 of Salman Rushdie's middle grade works. I have read Haron and the Sea of Stories. It was given to me as a gift, but I've yet to read Luca and the Fire of Life. This book looks so cozy and autumnal. I definitely have to check that out. Here's the manga section, and they surprisingly have a very large collection. I think manga have become more popular nowadays in the bookstores here, but they're also so very expensive. This is the Death Note Black Edition with the buttery soft cover and the black sprayed edges. But look how outrageously costly that is. Like, I could buy 5 or 6 books for that price. The Geronimo Stilton Table, which is just so nostalgic to me. I've read so many of these books throughout middle school, and I especially love the Thea Stilton books. Obviously, I find them much cooler than the Geronimo Stilton ones. This book is my favorite Thea Stilton book. It's set in Iceland and it follows a treasure hunt kind of adventure, and I really love that. I've been meaning to read the works of Umberto Eco. I should probably start with The Name of the Rose though. The prequel to The Priory of the Orange Tree, which is one of my favorite books of all time, so I absolutely have to read this. This book was quite an interesting read too, but I didn't enjoy it as much as everyone else. This is a beautiful edition of the Queen's Rising duology, which is sitting on my shelf right now, so I need to get to that. I'll be honest, I've never understood the Colleen Hoover hype. Her books are so problematic and yet they're so popular. Here's even more Sarah J. Maas books. I've read the entirety of the Throne of Glass series, and its new covers are extremely ugly, I've gotta say. I read Tokyo Ever After earlier this year, really enjoyed it, would recommend, and I've still got to read the sequel. The Selection series was such an easy read. Nothing too serious here, just a silly fun time. And here's all the Malayalam books, which constitute a solid 1/3 of the book fair, but I never really go here because I don't read that many Malayalam books. They're just really hard to get into. The writing style is so dense, and I guess I should be ashamed of not reading more in my mother tongue, but I guess I should check out non-fiction books because I don't have a problem with reading the newspaper. It's just books which are an issue. So I guess reading non-fiction books would be the way to go. More of Alice Oseman's redesigned cover. Loveless is the book that I most want to read by her because it has an Eroes protagonist. Loads of literary fiction works here. I do need to read more literary fiction books because that is one genre that I feel like I neglect quite a bit because I think I'm not big-brained enough for it. After we had had our fill of staring at all these thousands upon thousands of books laid on these tables, we decided to call it a day and leave from there. This was definitely a very fun experience. Staring at books always is. And the books over at the book fair are at least 50 to 100 rupees cheaper than buying them full price from bookstores. Definitely not as much as the online prices of them, but it's still better than nothing. And now I guess we've reached the part of the video that you are all curious for. What are the books that I ended up getting from there? And the answer is, well, I didn't get any. Because the books there are just way too expensive. And so I ended up walking away from there with my hands empty, but my mind rattling with all these new recommendations that I found. And I hope you walked away from this video with new recommendations too. Do let me know what you're reading in the comments down below. Please consider liking this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. I look forward to seeing you in my new video. Catch you later. 再见.